Welcome to this video on factoring by decomposition. To factor this quadratic, the first thing you do is make up a sum and product chart. Take the first number and multiply it by the third number. That gives you 18 in this case. That goes into the product column. Inspect the middle number. It is 11. It goes in the sum column. Your job now is to think of two numbers which multiply to 18 and add to 11. Well, they're not 6 and 3, which might be your first guess. 6 times 3 is 18, but 6 plus 3 is not 11. After a little bit of thinking, you come up with 2 and 9. Those are your numbers. They add to 11 and multiply to 18. Your next step is to decompose the middle number according to these numbers you just found. So then you'd write equals 6x squared plus 2x plus 9x plus 3. Now, 2x plus 9x is exactly equal to 11x. 11x has been decomposed into these two numbers. That's the reason for this word here, decomposition. You're decomposing the 11 into 2x and 9x. These two numbers can be written in any order. I could have put the 9 first. Your next step is to factor in pairs. So I'm going to factor what I can from the first two terms, then factor what I can from the last two terms. So that would become, well, what can you factor out of 6x squared and 2x? A 2x can come out. 2x times something you invent gives you 6x squared. That's going to be 3x. Then 2x times something you invent gives you 2x. So that's going to be a 1. Now you factor these two guys in pairs. Only a 3 is common to both of those terms, right? So I've got 3 times something gives 9x. That's going to be a 3x here, isn't it? And 3 times something is 3. That's going to be a 1 there. Notice a couple of things, a couple of important things. One is that this binomial is the same as this binomial. If you get to this stage in any question and these binomials don't match, you've made a mistake and you have to start over. Another thing to remember, or to keep an eye out for, is look at the ratio of these terms. 6 is to 2, what 9 is to 3. They're both in this 3-to-1 ratio, aren't they? So that's another marker to look out for that you're doing it correctly. This always works out like this. Okay, now what we do to finish the question off is we factor out the common binomial. So that common binomial is 3x plus 1. So 3x plus 1 times something gives this term back. That's 2x. And 3x plus 1 times something gives this term back. And that's going to be 3. This is now a product because you're multiplying this linear polynomial times this linear polynomial. So that's been factored. Let's try another question. Let's factor this guy with some negative signs this time. Factor 12x squared plus 5x minus 2. Okay, try to remember the steps. You have to memorize the steps. So the first thing you do is create your sum and product chart. Your first number times your third number, in this case, gives you negative 24. And the middle number, whatever it is, goes here. Now, try to think of two numbers that multiply to negative 24 and add to 5. Right? Try to think about that. Well, the numbers that multiply to 24 are things like 6 times 4 and 8 times 3, 12 times 2. Let's zero in on 8 and 3 for a sec. Now, if you want them to multiply to negative 24, one of them has to be negative, but they have to add to positive 5. So a negative sign going here would be right. Those would be your two numbers. If you have difficulty finding these numbers, I've got a method for you you're really going to like, a stress-free, really nice method that I'm going to show you in the next question, which is excessively complicated. So you'll see that it's warranted there. It's really a good method to know, and you'll see it in the next question. So what I do is I decompose this middle number according to the numbers I've just found. And that would be this. 12x squared. In any order you can write them down, right? Doesn't matter. So I could put this guy next. It doesn't matter. Plus 8x minus 2. And then you factor in pairs, just like in the last question. So I factor these guys, then I factor these guys. So here, from these two terms, I can take a 3x out. and that gives me 4x minus 1. And here I can take a 2 out. So I take a 2 out. 2 times something, right? 2 times something gives you 8x. 2 times something gives you 2, so this gives you 4x minus 1. Again, you get the same binomial. This binomial and this binomial matching. So then I bring that binomial out front. I factor out that common binomial, goes out front. And then I say, what goes in these brackets? 4x minus 1 times something gives you this term. So that'll be 3x. And 4x minus 1 times something gives you this term. That'll be 2. And that's been factored. Very good, very good. Okay, let's try another question which is difficult. And it will require a nice method I'd like to share with you to find the numbers. It's really complicated. No worries, no stress. Here we go. Factor this guy. 14x squared plus 29x plus 12. So here we go. Same method, sum and product chart. 14 times 12, right? That's 168. And you take the middle number and you put it here. And so now you are required to find two numbers which multiply to 168 and add to 29. And you think, oh, it'd be difficult to do, right? It's really like, how do you do that? That's really hard. Like, and a lot of people get upset at this point. But there's a really neat method you can do to fix this. What you do is you just go like this. Go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, as far as you need to go. Like, just start with 1 to 8, and then write more numbers down if you need them later. You'll see. Then you take the 168 and you put it here. Then you get out your calculator and you go 168 divided by 2. Yeah, that number divided by that number gives you 84. And that is another pair of numbers that multiply to 168. 2 times 84. Then I get out my calculator and I go 168 divided by 3. And that goes in 56 times. So 3 times 56 is another pair of numbers that multiply to 168. So it's a really good stress-free method for working out the numbers you need. So then I get 4 and I divide it into 168. And that goes in 42 times. 5 won't divide in cleanly, so I'll just put an X there. And as well, 6 won't divide in cleanly. 7 won't divide in cleanly either, but 8 will. If I divide 8 into 168, it goes in 21 times. Now you can keep this method going by putting 9, 10, 11. But at any time you want, you can stop and examine the numbers and think, well, I'm looking for numbers that add to 29. What numbers add to 29? Well, not those numbers. Those numbers don't add to 29. Those numbers don't, but if I skip down here, 8 and 21 do. So this totally cool, easy method, totally stress-free, gives you numbers which multiply to what you need and add to what you need. 8 and 21 fit the bill. So those are the numbers I use to decompose the 29. Here we go. Question continues. So now I've got this. The next line on the question would be 14x squared plus 8x plus 21x plus 12. And then I factor in pairs, just like before. So coming out of these two terms, what is the biggest number that can factor out of the first two terms? Well, it looks like it's going to be a 2x, doesn't it? 2 times 7 gives 14, so I'll put a 7x there. And 2 times 4 gives you 8, so I'll put a 4 there. Now I factor these two guys. So that guy's going to become, well, it looks like I've got a 3 coming out of there. 3 is the largest number I can take out of those two terms. So I pull it out and I'll have 3 times 7 gives you 21. So that would be 7x. 3 times what gives 12? That would be 4. And again, we have the same binomial in this position and this position. Another marker that you've done it correctly. Okay, switching to a new page. In this case now we'd have this. Here we are. So now I need to write our common binomial out front. You're really just factoring the common binomial from the whole expression now. So that's 7x plus 4 times, and then 7x plus 4 times something you invent gives this back. That's a 2x. And 7x plus 4 times something you invent gives this term back. That would be 3. Right? That times that gives that back. That's factored now, because it's a product. And that's a good intro to the factoring by decomposition method. I hope you found the video useful. If you did, please like, subscribe, and share. Videos on the other factoring methods, they're on their way. Post in the comments section any topics you'd like to see covered. Thanks.